You ever stop and think about what makes something funny? It really feels like magic, doesn't it? Like, some people just have it. But what if it's not magic at all? What if humor is more like architecture, something that can be designed, deconstructed, and even understood? Let's dig in.
So here's a quick one for you. A dyslexic man walks into a bra.
You probably cracked a smile, maybe even let out a little chuckle. But the big question is, why? What just happened inside your head that made that specific string of words funny? Well, that's exactly what we're here to unpack.
Okay, let's start with the most fundamental building block of literally all humor, the element of surprise. It's all about giving your brain a little jolt. Now, there's a scientific name for that jolt. It's called the incongruity resolution theory. See, our brains are basically pattern-matching machines. A joke sets up a nice, predictable pattern, and then it breaks it. That's the incongruity. And for a split second, our brain scrambles to figure out the new pattern. That aha moment, that click when you solve the little puzzle, that's the spark that triggers a laugh. So let's apply that to our first joke. Your brain heard a man walks into a, and it was already halfway to the finish line, thinking bar, but then it got bra. That's the incongruity, the pattern break. The resolution came from the clue in the setup, dyslexic. Your brain made the connection, solved the puzzle, and boom, laughter.
Okay, so if humor is basically an engineered surprise, how do comedians actually build the machine? Well, it really comes down to two essential parts, the setup and the punchline.
So getting a joke is this super fast three-step mental process. First, we construct an idea of what the story is about. Then comes the reckoning. The punchline hits and shatters that idea. Finally, we resolve it by finding a new, unexpected meaning that suddenly makes it all make sense. Now, the setup itself, it's not supposed to be funny. Its only job is to be super clear and build that foundation. It's kind of like loading a spring. It gets everyone in the audience thinking along the exact same predictable path. And the punchline, well, that's what releases the spring. It's the big payoff, that playful surprise. And it almost always hinges on a single key word, usually planted right at the end of the sentence. For our joke, that key word was bra. The second you hear it, your brain has everything it needs to solve the puzzle. But, mechanics alone are not enough. A joke can be perfectly structured and still just fall flat. That's because there's this deeper, psychological ingredient, a condition that absolutely has to be met for us to laugh.
It turns out, all humor starts with some kind of violation. It breaks a rule, a social norm, a pattern of logic, whatever. But a violation on its own isn't funny. It can just be weird or even offensive. For it to actually work, it has to happen in a context of safety, where we know there's no real threat.
See, humor doesn't live in the safety circle, and it doesn't live in the violation circle. It lives right there, in the overlap. This is called comedic conflict. Just think about tickling, right? You can't tickle yourself. It's too safe, no surprise. And you're definitely not going to laugh if a complete stranger tickles you. That's way too much of a violation. It's only funny when someone you trust does it. It's that perfect mix of safe and violation. Comedians are absolute masters of living in this sweet spot. I mean, look at this quote from Jim Jeffries. His whole act is based on his likable personality, creating the safety net that lets him get away with saying horrible things, the violations, and get a massive laugh instead of just getting thrown out. Here's another way it works, with a simple pun. The setup is safe. I went to the zoo the other day, there was only one dog in it. But then the punchline, it was a Shih Tzu, creates that comedic conflict. Your brain is suddenly holding two ideas at once. The safe one, a breed of dog, and the violation, which is, a pretty crappy zoo. The humor is right there in that overlap. Okay, so we've got our building blocks: surprise, setup, punchline, safety, and violation. Now let's look at how these simple blocks are used to build the entire universe of comedy. Whether you're watching Jerry Seinfeld's observational stuff, which is all about finding tiny violations in everyday social rules, or the cringe comedy of The Office, which puts you in a safe seat to watch a deeply unsafe social car crash, or Kevin Hart telling these crazy anecdotal stories, they're all just using the same core principles in different ways. And these ideas are ancient. Seriously, take slapstick. This idea of using physical violation for laughs goes all the way back to ancient Greece. It popped up in 16th century Italy, where they used an actual slapstick to make a loud but safe smacking sound. Then it became a cornerstone of silent films with folks like Charlie Chaplin, and it's still with us today with icons like Mr. Bean. Once you get this architecture, you start to see it everywhere.
It's like getting a new pair of glasses that lets you appreciate the comedies you already love on a whole new level.
Think about some of the greatest sitcoms ever. The wild, escalating violations of farce and slapstick in Faulty Towers, the brutal, awkward cringe comedy in The Office, even the gentle, character-based humor of Dad's Army, or the razor-sharp verbal violations in the satire of The Thick of It. They're all just different blueprints using the exact same foundation.
And this kind of leaves us with one final thought. If every single joke, every laugh, comes from breaking a rule inside a safe space, then what we find funny is basically a map of our own expectations. It shines a light on all the social, logical, and linguistic rules we just accept as normal every day. So what does your favorite comedy say about the rules you live by?